In 1969, a group of Nissan executives sat in a room and tried to kill a car before it ever reached America. Not because it was bad, because they were scared of it. They believed a small, cheap, Japanese-built sports car would humiliate their brand the moment it lined up next to a Jaguar or a Porsche, and they wanted it buried before it could embarrass them. One man in that room disagreed so violently that he risked his entire career to force it through anyway. His name was Yutaka Katayama. Everyone just called him Mr. K. And by the time he was done, the car his own company tried to bury didn't just survive, it outsold every sports car in America, European or otherwise, and turned "Made in Japan" from a punchline into a threat. This is the story of how a car nobody wanted to build became the car nobody could stop buying, and the one executive who bet everything to make it happen. If you like stories where the underdog actually wins, stick around, because this one gets uncomfortable for a lot of very important people before it's over. To understand why this fight happened at all, you have to understand what Japan meant to the American car buyer in the late 1960s. It didn't mean performance. It didn't mean prestige. It meant cheap, small, and forgettable. A Corolla in your driveway, not a sports car in your garage. Sports cars belong to Europe. If you wanted something fast and beautiful, you bought a Jaguar E-Type or a Porsche 911, and you paid a premium for the badge as much as the machine. Inside Nissan, and inside its American distribution network, that hierarchy wasn't just accepted, it was internalized. Nissan's own president, Katsuji Kawamata, was such a fan of the Broadway musical My Fair Lady that he wanted this car named after it instead of positioned as a serious performance machine. The fear wasn't abstract. Dealers worried they didn't have the service infrastructure to support a genuine sporting two-seater. Executives worried that if the car flopped against European rivals, it wouldn't just fail quietly, it would confirm every stereotype American buyers already held about Japanese engineering, and drag the rest of the lineup down with it. So the safe move, the move almost everyone in the room agreed on, was simple. Don't build it. Or if you have to build it small, price it low, market it quietly, and hope nobody notices if it disappears. Mr. K refused. He'd spent years running Nissan's US operations, watching American buyers fall in love with sports cars they couldn't afford, and he believed, not hoped, believed, that the market for an honest, affordable sports car was sitting right there, untouched, because nobody had built one properly yet. Not a cheap imitation, a real one. Inline six engine, a fastback body that looked like it belonged next to a Jaguar, not apologizing to one. A chassis tuned to actually handle, not just cruise. Katayama pointed straight at the Jaguar E-Type and told his own engineers that was the benchmark to beat, not some watered-down compromise wearing a Datsun badge. That was the first shelf moment of this story. A man with real authority inside Nissan looked at a room full of people telling him no and decided the company's own instincts were wrong. Remember what this video opened with: Mr. K risking his career to push a car his own company wanted buried. That fight didn't end with one meeting. It played out over the design of the car, the pricing, the marketing, and the dealer network, with Katayama overruling caution at almost every stage. And it's about to get him something even bigger than a sales win. Because this same car, the one people inside Nissan were embarrassed to be associated with, is going to end up doing something no one in that boardroom could have predicted. It will change how every Japanese automaker thinks about the American market permanently. We'll get to exactly how that happens. But first, you need to see what Mr. K was actually fighting for, because the car itself is where this story stops being about internal politics and starts being about proof. Here's what made the car impossible to dismiss once people actually saw it. The Datsun 240Z wasn't a compromise dressed up as a sports car. It had a long, clean, fastback silhouette that looked expensive from 30 feet away. Under the hood, a smooth inline-six with real touring performance, a 2.4-liter engine making 151 horsepower, enough to make it a genuine grand tourer, not a glorified commuter with a spoiler bolted on, capable of hitting 60 miles per hour in around 8 seconds. The chassis was balanced enough that it did not just go in a straight line. Well, it actually handled. And critically, Katayama refused to let reliability slide in the name of excitement. Every production decision was built around one non-negotiable. An American buyer walking into a Datsun dealership had to feel like they were getting a real sports car, not gambling on a science experiment that might strand them on the side of the highway. Every 240Z left the factory with front disc brakes and fully independent suspension at all four corners, a level of build quality American dealers simply had not seen from a Japanese car before. Then came the price. This is the detail that turned the entire argument upside down. A Jaguar E-Type or a Porsche 911 cost a small fortune, the kind of money that put European sports cars permanently out of reach for most American buyers who wanted one. The 240Z was priced at $3,526, which meant, for the first time, a buyer could walk into a showroom and drive out with something that looked and handled like a European exotic, for a fraction of what Jaguar or Porsche was asking. That wasn't a discount version of a sports car. That was the sports car the room full of skeptics said didn't exist European feel, at a price point nobody in Europe would ever match. When the 240Z actually hit American showrooms, the reaction wasn't polite interest. It was demand nobody inside Nissan had planned for. In its first year alone, Datsun sold over 16,000 of them, and by 1971, that number had jumped past 40,000. Dealers who had quietly doubted whether they could even sell a sporting two-seater found themselves with more buyers than cars. The exact people who had pushed hardest to keep this project small or kill it outright were now watching it outsell the European rivals they had been so afraid of losing to. That's the reckoning. Not a dramatic boardroom confrontation, but something quieter and more brutal for the skeptics. Sales numbers. The 240Z didn't just compete with Jaguar and Porsche on paper, it out-executed the fear that had almost kept it out of the country entirely. Every dealer who had worried about being embarrassed by a Japanese sports car was now explaining to Detroit and to Europe why their showroom floor was empty of 240s by the weekend. On the track, it backed up every claim the showroom floor was making. BRE Racing's 240s took back-to-back national championships in 1970 and 1971. And this is the thread we opened with, the one about changing how an entire industry thought about America. Because the 240Z's success didn't stay contained to one model or one sales year. It rewired how Nissan, and eventually every major Japanese manufacturer, viewed the US market. Before the 240Z, America was volume, a place to sell reliable, forgettable transportation in bulk. After the 240Z, America became a place where a Japanese company could compete on image, on performance, on desire, not just on price. By 1973, Datsun was selling over 230,000 cars a year in the United States, a surge that traced straight back to buyers who walked in for a 240Z and left with a completely new opinion of the entire brand. Mr. K never let anyone forget how close this car came to not existing at all. The man who fought his own company to build it became something close to a legend inside the industry, proof that the person willing to bet their career against the room's consensus is sometimes the only reason a company ends up right. The 240Z didn't just become America's best-selling sports car, it became the reason an entire industry stopped underestimating what "made in Japan" could mean. They said no one would buy it. Mr. K bet his career that they were wrong. And for years after, every Datsun and Nissan showroom in America was living proof of who actually understood the customer. If this kind of underdog story is your thing, the like button helps this channel more than you'd think.